Hello, my name's Richard Cox, and I'm here again with Tim Freke today. And today we're going to be talking about gurus. I'm going to be asking Tim all about the concept of the guru. So, good morning, Tim.
Good morning.
What's your well, no, we'll start off actually. If you could maybe explain the what a guru is, what the name means, the culture it comes from, all that kind of thing.
Well, it's an Indian term, um, and really just means a teacher. And in one way, it's a very open term because it's someone. Translations usually is take somebody takes them from darkness to light, or from ignorance to knowing. So it's any teacher. You can be someone who teaches you music. You can teach you anything. But it takes on a particular connotation, especially here in the West, because we've imported a theological view of the guru, and that's a particular way of seeing a teacher, which is developed in Hinduism, various forms of Hinduism, and Buddhism as well, where the teacher plays a very particular role and is seen in a very particular way, which is very attractive and also potentially dangerous, I think, or dangerous actually, and can easily become cultish, and we've seen a lot of that.
Is it particular to you say the Buddhist tradition also? So the figure of the guru in the Hindu tradition, is it comparable to like Zen masters or Tibetan tulkus or Christian saints, or not comparable? Or
Yeah, really good question. I mean, I think the saints are quirky and odd and all different, and it's not a theological thing. The saint is a figure who is really powerful, particularly after death. I always feel it's someone, it becomes a vehicle between you and God after death, and it's a human face again. The guru is right here right now. So in the West, we have one guru, and that's Jesus. And he carries the whole thing. He is God incarnate, and we go to God through him. In the East, there's this idea that we can all be that, and that the guru represents the person, or is the person, who is a clear vehicle to God. So you see in this particular type of the guru tradition, the guru is God.
hmm
That's the whole thing, which is quite heretical in the West because only Jesus is God. But in the East, now the Guru is God because he is fully realized, he is one with the divine, and he's a vehicle through which you can reach to God. And so he's carrying the Sat Guru, the true teacher, who isn't a person really. The true teacher is the deep self of all of us, but it speaks through this teacher. So it's a lovely idea, which means that you can worship God through the guru. So you literally surrender yourself to God through your guru. And if your guru is this pure being, and it has huge advantages because in some of those traditions, it's about trying to unpick you from your limitations. So in lots of them, that's the ego, the separate self, which is holding you back, and it resists. And the guru is someone you trust. So you trust them to turn around and go, woof, right, and you have to do what they say. So the most comparable thing with that would be the monastic tradition, say, like where I am in Glastonbury, we had Benedictine monasteries, and there you promise obedience to the abbot, again for the same thing. He will look after your spiritual well-being, and he will tell you, no, you need to go and wash vegetables for 5 years, and that will be good for you. Even you're going, no, it's not my destiny. It's like, yeah, you go do that because you surrender to the person who is spiritually more able to cut through. That's on the good side, of course. On the other side is fraught with all of the dangers that come with any form of power. And this is an absolute form of power because it's divine power, and therefore it's absolutely dangerous, especially in a culture. Well, actually, in both cultures. I was going to say especially for us, but I'm not sure that's true. I
Well,
think it's just
what's been your personal experience of it? Is there ever a time where you considered you had a guru, or did you ever aspire to be a guru? Was that
excuse me. I never aspired to be a guru, and still don't. In fact, the opposite. Um, partly because I don't know that. There's all sorts of reasons I don't aspire to be a guru. One is I don't think it's the model for the future, which we may get a chance to talk about. I think that it's one we need to leave behind. I think it's an outdated model. Secondly, I don't feel, if it was the right model, that I could fulfill that role, because I'm not, certainly don't feel of myself as this channel of ultimate wisdom. And thirdly, it all sounds like an awful lot of responsibility, which I'm not sure I want to take on, because one of the plus sides of the guru figure is that ideally the guru, is a father figure or a mother figure for the aspirant. So it's a mentor, and I've had mentors who've been wonderful, just wonderful people I trust, who can guide me through and play that role. So it's a real, that's the benign figure. Of course, once it becomes huge, then there's no direct relationship. So I did have a guru, and he was hugely important to me. I was very young. It was a guru which many Western people my age got involved in, because he was very popular. His name was Prempal Singh Rawat, but he was known as Maharaji or Maharaji, which is a traditional name, means great king. And this guru was very interesting. It was a whole, because this guru, he was very young. He'd become a guru incredibly young, like 8 or 9, with the death of his father. He was an exceptional young man. He talked to 250,000 people by the time he was, again, really young. And when I met him, he was a little bit older than me, and I was in my early teens, or no, middle late teens. And he's Indian. And what was interesting about that was it really captured that spiritual romanticism, which lots of us are prone to. I'm certainly prone to it, or have been. So he came across, well, I'll tell you the magic happened. That's the odd thing. Even though now I need to put the spoiler alert in now, to go that, honestly, I don't think it was, I left this feeling I'd learned a lot. I was really pleased I was out, and I wouldn't encourage anyone to get in. Also, but a real genuine magic happened, because that's the way life is. The magic doesn't always feel like it's only for these guys, and it happens. So, I mean, the very start of it was being on a drama weekend, local Somerset drama I was invited to go and be part of as a kid. On this weekend, I'm sitting there, and I'm praying, really. I'm just meditating, and I'm thinking, oh God, I wish I'd been alive when Jesus was alive. That would be the best thing ever. It's like, well, here I am in Somerset in 19, whatever it was, 70 something. And it's like, well, if only I'd been with, if you could meet Jesus, that would be, then it would all make sense. And a friend of mine who was a little bit older than me and had an older brother who was involved with Maharaji, just came up at that weekend and gave me a book called Who is Guru Maharaji? And there was this little boy, and there was a whole load of people going, this is like, he's Jesus come again. And it's like, oh my God. And off I went, to find out this guy who was Jesus come again. Not just Jesus come again, but Muhammad come again, and Ram come again, and Krishna come again. Because in that particular Hindu tradition, there is always a perfect master, the perfect guru, the God guru, and he reincarnates and comes back and rescues these people. And this time, this young boy had come and declared, I've come and I'm going to bring peace to the world. Well, I was a young teenager, and there was a young boy saying, I'm going to bring peace to the world. I was like, wow, really? Fantastic. And I'm going to give you this gnosis, you didn't call it gnosis, this knowledge, this meditation, and you will receive this knowledge. Well, I've already had the experience of the knowledge. I didn't think of it in those terms necessarily, but I had. And when I was 12, and I had a spontaneous awakening, so it really rang for me. It's like, oh yeah, this is it. This is what I've been, called to. So I became involved in him, and I mean, wow, that's a huge story, because it lasted some time, and in fact, I had 2 episodes. I went away and I came back.
So was there, because I noticed, like, if someone reads the kind of books you wrote in the 90s, say, and then only a few years later, around 2000 time when you're writing the Laughing Jesus, there's this real shift in how you write about gurus and maybe the reverence with which you treat the Eastern traditions. Yeah. And some of the sacred cows and that decreases over the years. So was there a paradigm shifting moment for you, or was it a gradual accumulation of doubt as to the specialness?
Yeah, that's such a great question, Richard. The break with Maraji came in my mid-20s, so that had been well and truly done before I was writing anything. Um, I think I I think what happened was I felt, oh, I'd broken with this particular guru.
Hmm.
And this particular guru had not lived up to my expectations. And I saw it as incredibly cultish, which it was. Incredible. I mean, I do think being a member of a cult for a time is a good thing. Providing going in is fine as long as you come out. Because you do understand things about yourself. I understood about, the way that I was prone to be taken in by this kind of negative romanticism. And I was interested that I had to work at it. It's a bit like, people who become addicts of things like heroin and things like or even tobacco and things. You don't just become one. You kind of have to want to almost. You have to work at it. And it was kind of the same with Maraji. I saw all these other people in love with him, and I went to the very first satsang that I heard to hear people talk about him. And I'll never forget it, sitting in this room. It was all very odd. We were drinking weird tea. It was Earl Grey tea, but that seemed weird at the time. It's like there was no chairs. It was all on the floor. I was a kid from Yeovil in Somerset. And everything was painted white. And there was incense. And then this picture of this fat, a really overweight young Indian boy with a bow tie looking completely naff. And all of these people underneath going, he's my Lord, he's God, I just love him so much, he's my Lord. And I'm there thinking, he's just ripping you off. I mean, I wasn't immediately in. I just thought, this is incredible. He's going around in Rolls Royces and, and jets and living the life of, of massive affluence. And none of you seem concerned about this. And, and just worshipping him. And yet there was part of me that wanted what they had. And I had to, the first time I saw him, I had to will myself into that state of devotion that I could see everyone in, because I wanted it. And then once I was in, then it was easy. And then just to see him would bring tears to my eyes, and my heart would open, and I'd feel amazing. So I understand how people can be the same in a fundamentalist Christian group, going, oh, Jesus is touching me, because I've been there. I know what it's like. Or even watching Adolf Hitler. How women can be, crying and going, oh, he's so amazing. There is it opens you up to see a certain cultishness that exists right across the board. That didn't answer your question, but hopefully it was interesting.
It was,
you said about
yes.
The moment of whether there was a transition moment.
Growing delusion, or was it a moment that...
I think what happened, really, Richard, probably was doing the work on the Jesus mysteries and unpacking Christianity made me realize how I needed to unpack everything. Mm-hmm. So I was willing to go back to the East then and go, hang on, I've just taken a lot of this on face value. I've just seen it as exotic and wise and, and that kind of credibility. So, a different way I can remember, I would read books about Indian gurus like Neem Crowley Baba or reading the stories of, the other guy who I want to quote, who I can't think of his name, autobiography of a yogi, Yogananda, full of these amazing stories. And what's interesting to me in retrospect, I just believed them all. I just believed them. And there was but as I was writing books going, hey guys, we're reading the Bible and we're just believing it. Why are we doing that? Why aren't we questioning it? Then suddenly it was like, oh, but I'm reading these books and I'm just believing it. Isn't that interesting? It's showing me more about me. Because really, I shouldn't be just believing that. I should be being open-minded about it. I should, oh, that's interesting. Could that be true or not? And then as the decades have gone by and I've been involved in spirituality, I've seen the level of dishonesty which exists. And I've seen the level of kind of benign dishonesty, a kind of a way in which we fool ourselves and each other to believe things we want to believe and which make us feel good. So that we play a game with each other. We don't question things ourselves. We don't question others. We take things on face value. And if things feel like, the world can be very scary and very cold and very bleak. So if someone comes along with something which sounds miraculous and sweet and lovely, it's like, yeah, I want some of that. And I've been there. I know what that's like. But as I've got older, I felt like, no, we need something deeper than that. We need something which is more substantial, and that means clearing away that kind of more childlike
So what's your view on this now
gullibility.
for 21st century spirituality in terms of the role of the guru? Do you see it as a relic that needs to be discarded, or is there a baby in the bathwater that can be preserved in terms of the effect a guru can have on someone?
You know, really, Richard, my only issue, probably with anything, well, that's crazy. My issue around these type of things is only with absolutism.
Hmm.
And it's because of, I'm such a paralogical thinker. Absolutism is the one thing which goes, no, that's not the way to go. So I have no problem with wise people. We need as many wise people we can get. I am full of admiration for those people who are willing to play a role to mentor people, and I do some of that myself, because you're really, but I do think that can only be done in small groups, and I think it's a very precious thing that happens between individuals, and it needs to be handled very, very carefully. And I'm grateful that my mentors mentored me really well. I mean, for example, what I'm thinking of there was a gentleman called Brother Bernard who was a Franciscan friar. He ran the friary I ran away to when I was 15 and ran away to again when I was 24 and stayed there. He became a very close friend and he was my mentor. And what was interesting about the way he mentored was it was never absolute. He never told me the way it was. But he was quite willing to point out to me when he thought I was losing the way. It didn't do me much good, actually, at the time. I mean, I remember he was I might have mentioned this to you before, but he was the guy who, when I was opening up to Advaita, through having gone to, again, a guru actually, rejected Sai Baba at his ashram, there's a whole other story, and just thinking, this is that guru thing again, it's horrendous. And then finding someone who was interactive, like a philosopher in Ramesh Balsekar, and discovering the depth of Advaita. At that moment, Bernard was there going, I'm not sure about that. I think the personal really matters. And I'm thinking, oh, Bernard, you've missed the point completely.
Right,
You
yeah.
just don't get it, do you? You just don't get it. All these years later, I'm there, oh, Bernard, thank you so much. You planted that seed which rescued me from getting lost in the absolutism of Advaita and pulled me back to something else which you could see and I couldn't see. And so that role is great. What we don't want is somebody we don't want a pope who's infallible. We don't want a guru who's infallible. We don't want science which is infallible. We want well-meaning people sharing their wisdom so that others can take what works and leave it and change their mind and go, I've grown out of that, I've moved on. And so we have a healthy dialogue where we give each other as much as we can and we give each other respect, without getting caught in anything absolute. And that's the problem with elevating someone to Godhead. It's the problem with channeling. It's the problem with anything which is absolute.
Mm-hmm.
Is going to be is dangerous, and it's not just dangerous because it misleads, although it does, because it's not true, actually. And that's a major issue. But also because what needs to happen for us is that we need to become empowered as individuals with our own gnosis, our own knowledge. So we need gurus who want to lose their job. We need, and which is why, to me, if you're looking at a teacher, the mistake is to look at the teacher. But that's what you look at. You look at the teacher, and he's so wonderful. It's like the teacher's irrelevant. Look at the students. If he's claiming to be, if you have an enlightened teacher who claims enlightenment, which I think is a fraud to start off with, then my advice would be, don't look at the teacher. Look around and go, how many students are also enlightened? And then look at them. Because if they haven't got any, they're not a good teacher, are they? It's all not right. So the answer, I've covered a few bit of other points as well here. But so the point, I think, is, look, absolutism. That's the issue. That's the root for me. Lose that, and all of this can be healthy.
Well, thanks for that, Tim. Just before we finish, I'd just like to ask you about a film we were talking about some time ago. We both saw around the same time. And you know what's coming. It's the
I do.
Kumaré film by Vikram Gandhi. I'll just give a narrative. of
Yeah.
that for the audience. So it's a film made by a young Indian American man. His parents had emigrated from India to the United States, and he'd really rejected the Hindu culture and wanted to go really westernized. And then when he went to college, a lot of his Western friends got into yoga and meditation and started following gurus. And he kind of came around a bit to the virtues of yoga and meditation, but was very cynical about the gurus. And he went to India to visit some of them, but he was convinced that the kind of spiritual experiences people were having were coming from within them and not from the guru. So to test the theory, he made a documentary film faking being a guru, where he grew his hair long and a big beard and practiced yoga and got this ridiculous staff with an Om symbol on the top and set himself up in a small town, I think it was in Arizona, to see if he could get any followers, anyone to believe that he was this divine incarnation. And then really unexpected and profound things happened in terms of not only did he get followers, but he started to have this really magical impact on some of their lives and transformative. And the film's available online, so we'll put a link in below. But what was your take on that, Tim? What are your feelings after watching
I
it?
loved the film. I saw it at the Science and Non-Duality conference twice, and bought it and wanted to share it with films. I love the film, but not just because of as a guru cynic. I love the film because there was a kindness in it,
Mm,
actually, and what it was showing was, what was interesting was that the filmmaker, not only did magic happen around him, but he liked himself.
mm,
He became this wise person. Let me tell you a little thing that happened that always stuck in my mind. I remember when I went to see Ram Dass. I went on a 5-day retreat in my 20s with Ram Dass. And in one of the breaks, about 500 of us there, and there were some kids, quite young, and they were messing about. And we were all like having food, but I'd come back in to meditate. And the kids were playing around on the stage. And and one of them said, "Let's play gurus." And one of them would sit in Ram Dass's chair, and the others would ask that one questions, and that one would answer the question, and then they'd swap. What was absolutely mind-blowing was that whoever sat in the guru chair became wise. And these kids were just amazing. And I think that's the thing that gets me. It's like, look, what happened was that everyone around the filmmaker gave him permission to have that effect on them. I feel a bit like that when I run my events. It's like, it's a real privilege. I try and not go for the fakery.
mm.
I try and be really, really honest and myself. But I know that everyone gives me this opportunity to be the best Tim, and the energy, and that's wonderful. And I can find this depth in me where I can represent this deepest wisdom, and we can share in it, and I can interact in it, and it's a beautiful experience for everyone. He was doing that also, but with this game going on. But the real thing is underneath the game. So my feeling, what it showed was, look, just get rid of the game. Now,
Mm.
the issue is, it takes a certain level of maturity, and I don't mean that in a pejorative sense, just in the way we always use the word, we mature in different places at different times, to see that. Because to begin with, we're much more attracted. If someone comes into town here and he goes, like, I'm a fully enlightened being, and da-da, and there's a whole entourage, and they're dressed in white, and a funny hat, and they're called something, it's like, whoosh, big crowd. Because we're drawn to that. So it takes a certain maturity before people get to the point where they're not. And for me, in that area, I definitely feel I've matured. And there's plenty of places I'm sure I haven't. But there, it's like, if somebody comes and goes, I'm just not interested. Just not interested. Seen too many now. If there's somebody who has humility and wisdom and perception that they're willing to share, and that I respect, wow, I want to hear that person speak, and I'm grateful to them for their gift that they're willing to give. And so what I got from the film was that, it's like, look, isn't this crazy? I mean, it's funny, and we're so gullible, and we want it, and it's kind of sad and poignant, and what
Yeah,
was interesting, the end, wasn't it? Tell folks about the end, because that was really.
the end. Well, no, I won't. I'll let them watch it. I'll put a link.
Oh
But
yeah,
I
of
never
course.
tell people how it ends, Tim. So
No,
I'll keep that rule. But it's
yeah,
definitely worth. It's one of the most worthwhile documentaries for me. it dissolved the remnants of the guru myth, because I still had in mind, well, there must be something special about these people. They must have some sort of magnetic quality, because you can't attract that many followers thinking you're God incarnate without having
Oh,
some
they
sort
do.
of special
They
little
do
bit
have some
that.
sort of
Hmm?
power, don't you think? They
Sorry?
do. They do have a power.
But it's a power that almost anyone could
Ah,
have themselves, right? It's a theatrical power. It comes from an act of theatre.
yeah, yeah. Interesting.
It might be. I also think that Vikram Gandhi, the guy, it couldn't have been just anyone. He was quite wise and maybe had good counselling skills, you could say, and that's where the effect came from, transformatively. And it was. He also studied meditation in the lead up to it. Um, but that's the other aspect of me. More than just demolishing the guru myth, which is what he set out to do. It was an incredible film about human potential and how
Yeah.
anyone can potentially be a mirror for another person's soul and allow them to find themselves by giving them that space.
There's the idea of the Satguru, which is the teacher in everyone, and therefore you find the Satguru. Like I'm just hearing the Satguru and you there speaking. It's like, that's telling me something. Yeah, that's right, really clear. And I think that's a lovely thing. That's like the Christ within, or all of that idea. Beautiful thing. And you're right, it is theatrical, but also, I'm thinking like Western gurus, like Andrew
Cohen?
Cohen and people like that, where it's been again, disastrous for people. Smart guy, really smart, charismatic guy. It did a lot of good, dynamic, made great things happen. And also all the way through, it always felt like whenever I interacted with it, it was like, oh, no. And yet also wonderful. And so I suspect they're all like that. There's people who play those incredible roles for people. I'm sure that it's the idea. Here's the thing. This is it. It's the idea that there's a kind of linear journey where you kind of get there and then everything's right, rather than there are people with real ability to play music and Van Morrison. There was a time he really moved me. I'd listen to Van Morrison play. Oh, my heart would open. Still true, actually. But from what I know about him, he's a grumpy old sod. And that's fine. It's like, yes, he's divine. Put a guitar in his hand, let him sing, and God speaks through him. But probably meet him, elsewhere, and you just think, oh, God, he's a difficult man. There's loads of artists like that. But what we do with these spiritual figures is we go, they have the ability to reveal the depth of the void. They have the ability to open up this transcendental space to us. And probably they do. And they probably are experiencing it themselves. It's not that I think people are lying, necessarily. It's that we assume, therefore, that somehow their other aspects of their soul, their personality, are somehow all perfected. And that is just not true. And I remember spending time with a young, well, wasn't that young, Western guy who had been very involved with Tibetan Buddhism from a young age. Very, very, very involved with a lot of the very, very high lamas. And his perspective was, these guys are amazing and really messed up. Because they've been taken at a very young age, given this incredibly strange education, which means they're so sophisticated at this level, but completely kind of messed up and not right on this other personal level. So, and once you get that, you go, oh, right, of course, yeah, that makes sense. We're all a bit like that in different ways. Again, the absolutism goes, and we can benefit from where people have got that without losing ourselves to it.
Well, thank you very much for all that, Tim. It was very interesting. And I hope enlightening. I think there's a lot of good material for consideration there for guruism going into the future. Next time, I'm going to be at Tim's writing a new book at the minute. Can you say what it's called?
Well, it's provisionally called Soul Formation: The Meaning of Life and Death. It's a nice, lightweight title, but that's what I'm working on.
Okay, so I'm not going to ask him about that next time.
No,
I would
not
at
yet.
some point. But next time, we thought it'd be interesting if I asked him about the process of how he goes through in creating a book. I think you've written 25 books over or so, over 20 years now. And I'm interested to know, because I think like a lot of people, I try my hand at a bit of writing now and then, and sometimes I can get a few paragraphs out, and sometimes I get very stuck in it. So I think it'll be interesting to get Tim's perspective on what role this deeper consciousness plays in writing, what role it doesn't. So I'll be asking all about that. And if anyone has any questions they'd like me to put to Tim, just leave them in the comments section on this video. So Tim, thank you very much, and I'll see you next time.
Thanks, Richard. It's been great.
Bye.